The Reform meltdown continues apace, with one of the party's 5 MPs losing the whip over the weekend. Rupert Lowe, MP for Great Yarmouth and former chairman of Southampton Football Club, was suspended last week after Reform reported him to the police for alleged threats of violence towards the party's chairman, Zia Yusuf. A joint statement by Yusuf and Reform's chief whip, Lee Anderson, also alleged that 2 female employees had complained about serious bullying in Lowe's office. Here's part of that statement. Evidence was provided to us of workplace bullying, the targeting of female staff who raised concerns, and evidence of derogatory and discriminatory remarks made about women, including reference to a perceived disability. We feel we have a duty of care to all our staff, whether employed directly or indirectly. Accordingly, we appointed an independent King's Counsel to conduct an investigation into the veracity of these complaints. To date, Mr. Lowe has yet to cooperate with this investigation. In addition to these allegations of a disturbing pattern of behaviour, Mr. Lowe has, on at least 2 occasions, made threats of physical violence against our party chairman. Accordingly, this matter is with the police. The party is now in open civil war over the suspension. On GB News, it was put to Reform's deputy leader, Richard Tice, that the timing seemed a little suspicious.
The timing doesn't just look coincidental, it looks a little bit malicious.
Well, I've just told you.
The allegations refer to something that happened in December. And you decided to come out with it. No, let me finish my question if you don't mind, because it is my show. You come out with the statement on Thursday after Rupert Lowe has questioned whether Nigel Farage is fit to be Prime Minister. There was no need to have released the statement immediately after that interview. These allegations refer to something back in December. So, of course, the timing looks deeply suspicious. And it suggests you've mishandled it.
Far from it. We've done the appropriate and responsible thing to do. There was a further threat made to Zia literally last week. So at the end of the day...
What's the nature of these threats?
I'm not going to go into any details of that, but ultimately, as chairman, Zia's got significant responsibilities. Imagine if we'd done the opposite. Imagine if we'd brushed this all under the carpet.
Well, you could have conducted an internal investigation and then revealed the findings. Even the KC in this seems to think that you put this statement out too early.
The reality is that we have been working incredibly hard. We're going up in the polls. But the truth is, hang on, hear me out. The truth is that these difficulties have been ongoing for some time. We hoped that they could be dealt with.
Now, Rupert Lowe himself, he denies everything. He's accused Farage of a, quote, a vindictive witch hunt after Lowe told the Daily Mail that the leader acted like a messiah and needed to delegate. And he claims the allegations against him are maliciously concocted and, quote, a coordinated hit job to force me out of Reform. In an interview with Dan Wootton, he discussed allegations made against him by party figures.
The most damning claim made against you by senior Reform figures over the past 72 hours, and this is, of course, their words, not mine, but it's that you are an out-of-control, a violent man who has made threats to party officials and is even suffering from early onset dementia. And I know you want to respond directly. So is any of that true?
Well, Dan, let me tell you, this event on Friday came out of the sun like a spitfire. There was no discussion before it, so it's mystifying from top to bottom, frankly. In answer to your question, how am I? I'm fine. Compared with football, this is child's play. Try sitting in a football stadium with 32,500 people chanting "Rupert Lowe is a Wanker," telling your wife it's not true. And the other favourite chant was "Swing Rupert Lowe from the Itchen Bridge." So, look,
so you're used to this.
I've been through this. This is child's play, and the disappointing thing is it's very malicious child's play. I mean, people can judge whether they think I've got early onset dementia. I mean, that really is, that's playing the man, not the ball in football terms. So, I mean, it's complete rubbish.
Ben Habib, the former co-deputy leader of Reform, who was ousted by Farage, told The Observer he thought the allegations against Lowe were part of a, quote, playbook used against those who are no longer in favour. Helena, it's all kicking off in the Golden Twilight retirement home for men. What's your diagnosis here?
I mean, the thing is the big picture, it's good that if there are any allegations, they are being investigated. And Richard Tice and Nigel Farage, especially Richard Tice, really, has been doing a lot of the media rounders on Laura Kuenssberg. He's been on Sky News and places like that, making the legitimate point that, well, we receive these allegations, right? We don't know whether they are true or not, but what we need to do is make sure the entire process is followed. His whip will be suspended until these investigations have been carried out and we find out the veracity of these things, because we want to look like a professional party, for example, And these are very reasonable things to say. Like, that's the kind of big picture here, because a lot of the things that are being alleged that Rupert Lowe has done, these aren't very good, right? A lot of these things are really bad. It's really bad look for your party too. If you have one MP who was said in court statements to have kicked his ex-girlfriend, and then another one comes up and there are these allegations of bullying female co-workers, right? Again, these are just allegations. We do not know whether they're true. The whole point of investigations is you find out whether they are true or not, and then you act accordingly. But whilst you do those, you suspend your MP and have the whip suspended whilst those are carried out. This is normal procedure, right? But granularly, it is really important, and Camilla Tominey was also right to point out, it looks a little bit coincidental that suddenly these allegations surface immediately after Rupert Lowe has this kind of critical approach to Nigel Farage's leadership of the party. I mean, it's only recently started acting like an actual party. Before, up until the 20th of February, I think it was a limited company with Nigel Farage as the majority shareholder. So it did look a lot like a Nigel Farage vanity project for a very, very long time. But part of this professionalization of the party has involved bringing in Zia Youssef as chairman, having a proper party structure, turning it into a not-for-profit with no share ownership, and then having members been given the ability to be able to have a vote of no confidence in their leader. It's looking a little bit more like a party moving forward. But like any party, there is the internal stuff that happens behind the scenes. Now here, we on the left, we like to call ourselves out for infighting all the time, but the right wing is just as bad, if not worse, for infighting, right? And it's also interesting that people always try to decry Jeremy Corbyn as leading a Stalinist Labour Party when he was anything but, and he trying to bring people all together all the time. When the major parties in this country, they're incredibly Stalinist. It's all compromat. There's been rumours of there being, the whole dossier of compromise that the Conservative Party has internally on each other. The current Labour leadership brief against each other day after day after day, and the people they don't like within the party, right? The circular firing squad is part and parcel of British politics, and it really has always been, especially amongst right-wing parties, which is full of big characters, people who have personal ideologies and things they want to put into practice, but they also have a certain level of ambition, a certain level of ego. And these things are always going to clash, especially in a party with only 5 MPs, which is a particularly new party as well. So I would not be surprised in the slightest if, and again, if this is true, and may or may well not be, it turns out that these allegations were given all the way back in December, and they were only released now as a way of trying to discipline Rupert Lowe from being a little bit too big for his boots, ever since Elon Musk said that he should take over from Nigel Farage as being the leader of Reform UK. And as a left-wing person, I would much rather have Nigel Farage as the leader of Reform UK, quite frankly, because Nigel Farage is positively moderate in comparison to some of the pretty extreme views that I personally believe are extreme that Rupert Lowe has and he extols daily on his Twitter account. You only have to look through the things that he says to understand that I think this man is a pretty radical and dangerous voice in British politics. Seeing him potentially outside of Reform UK's political future is something that I'm very, very happy to see more broadly. And I think tactically it also makes sense for Reform UK as well. Like Rupert Lowe's extremism, in my mind, only really appeals to the headbangers who are already bought into Reform UK. Rupert Lowe not being with the party anymore, whilst Nigel Farage and Richard Tice try and court more moderate voters by moderating the voice of the party in the same way Le Pen has done with the Rassemblement National in France, is where their electoral force is going to come from. If they put off people by looking a little bit too ethno-nationalist, in my opinion, it's not going to be a way of being electorally successful, which is what matters in a system like first past the post. And people who are die-hard Rupert Lowe supporters who are on the more right-wing end of the party, they've got nowhere else to go. Well, they're going to vote for the Reclaim Party or the Homeland Party. It's very unlikely that they're going to do so. Their fundamental approach to politics is going to get them success. Is going to be supporting Reform UK. And Rupert Lowe continually dragging the party rightwards is not going to help their broader appeal.
Yeah, I completely agree, Helena. And actually, many times I've wondered why action wasn't taken against Rupert Lowe before now. The man tweets so many times a day, I don't know, 15, 20 times a day, just flinging out the most kind of extreme policy suggestions, really appealing to, as you say, the headbangers. And I think if there's anything that Nigel Farage understands, and, you know, no matter what you think of Farage, he's an incredibly successful political figure in the UK. He's managed to change this country perhaps more than any other individual political leader in living memory. Well, maybe not as much as Thatcher, let's say that. But he understands that in order to win and in order to, you know, form a government, he has to have a broad appeal and he has to connect with a wide range of voters, not just those voters who would like to see, you know, immigrants rounded up and deported. You know, many British people would be completely against that, while at the same time thinking, okay, well, maybe there should be controls of immigration, and they trust Reform to do that more than they trust the Tories to do it now. So yeah, to me, it's no surprise that this has happened, and I'm kind of surprised it didn't happen sooner. Perhaps Rupert Lowe just isn't the sort of person who responds to ideas of party discipline.